This episode is proudly supported by Anchor Food Professionals, makers of mainland cheese. Here's Andy Sy from the Notting Hill Hotel.
We've been using them for a few years now, using their tasty and mozzarella cheese. We go through about 135 kilos a week at the moment. So a huge number. So we use it for our garlic bread, our pizzas, our parmas, our bechamel, our cheese sauce for our croquettes and arancini, throughout our lasagnas, anywhere we can really. It's such a good product. You know, having the freshest chips to your fresh chicken to a freshly crumbed schnitzel and topping up with a really high quality cheese is amazing.
For more information, go to anchorfoodprofessionals.com.
What has been truly amazing for me is just me walking through the floor and people like I have no clue who they are stopping me and thanking me for decades of service and, you know, where they're going to go now to celebrate their anniversaries, their birthdays, their special occasions.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Today's guest has appeared on the show a few times, actually, including one of our special Christmas episodes. But this time, it's to reflect on what has been an extraordinary run of influence for his restaurant, Red Lantern, which after 2 decades, he's pulled up stumps on. Mark Jensen, how are you?
I'm very well. Such an honour to be here, of course.
Mate, it's always a pleasure to see you. You've always got great yarns, but you've decided to close Red Lantern, which shocked lots of people, but a couple of decades is extraordinary for any restaurant. How are you feeling?
I feel relieved. I feel quite kind of elated. I'm looking forward to the future. And that's not to say the last 2 decades haven't been amazing. Obviously, anyone that owns a restaurant or a small business can appreciate what has happened during that time.
Yeah. I know you've literally just closed on the weekend. Yeah. It's a lot to take in, probably a lot of emotions on the weekend. What's the last couple of days been like for you?
I've just been catching up on sleep. Like it's been, no,
20 years of it.
20 years of sleep. No, it's been amazing, right? It's been amazing because I announced the closure about 3 months, like to the day of closure. And it was insane, phenomenal. Like I was so busy. It was just, the restaurant was booked out. It was absolutely incredible. So I run it and always have run it with a minimal team. So everybody was stretched and I'd given it a little bit of thought, but I'd already given permission for 2 chefs to go on holiday. So the first 5 weeks of that 12-week run, we were short in the kitchen and just getting absolutely smashed.
Well, what was it like? I mean, we'll talk about the decision to close in a second, but to have that response from the public and be booked out for 3 months, did it make you think maybe you should continue on? Or like, what was the feelings like of having the restaurant full for that period of time?
It was so fantastic, and it was such a tribute to what Red Lantern has achieved or accomplished over the last 20 years. I had no second thoughts. I mean, this was definitely the right decision to make. So I could have been, twice as busy as what I was, and I still would have had no regrets in closing the place.
Now, I know we've discussed a few times on the podcast the challenging times and periods of times and all of these different factors that can impact on the sustainability of a restaurant, but 2 decades is extraordinary. What ultimately led the decision for you to move on to something new?
Well, I had to take the emotion out because restaurants are very emotional businesses, right? You always think it's, just tomorrow things are going to get better. But it was purely an economic decision. I mean, we opened in 2002 and it was just we were so outrageously busy and the restaurant has afforded us so many wonderful opportunities. We can talk about all that later. But I think what really prompted the decision is coming out of the pandemic, business has never been the same. And I think a lot of restaurateurs are finding this the same point is that it's really hard to get people to dine late. So restaurants really need, especially a restaurant of my size, really need several seatings throughout the night to make money. So we would find that people wanted to come earlier. We used to open at 6 and then we started opening at 5 and then we started opening at 4:30. And we would actually get people coming in to eat at 4:30, right? But then by the time the clock strikes 8, you could shoot a shotgun, as the expression goes, and you wouldn't hit anyone. It's crazy how I don't know whether as an industry we train people to dine early over the pandemic period, but I know coming out of it, we tried many things to try and get people to dine later, and we just couldn't do that. So so let's just say the 5 to 8 pays the bills, just maybe a bit before, a bit behind, a bit in front. But you really need, as a business, you really need diners after 8 to make any money.
Yeah. Well, take us back to a couple of decades ago and the creation of Red Lantern. How did the idea come together and finding the site? What was that period of time like?
Well, it was an interesting time because back then, 2002, probably 2001, I was working at the Olympic Hotel and had been for 5 years. And Luke and Pauline used to come and work for me part-time, just, as front of house. And Luke would always come in and say he wanted to open up a Vietnamese restaurant and bring a taste of Cabramatta to the inner city, but try and elevate the cuisine somewhat. And every week he'd come in and say, I still haven't found a chef. And eventually wore me down and I volunteered for the role. So having never used a wok or cleaver or cooked Asian food in a commercial kitchen before, I thought, well, I'm in for a new challenge. And it was I'm so grateful that I accepted that invitation because life changed for me. It really did. I sort of got insight into Vietnamese culture. Obviously, Paul and I became romantically involved and we have 2 wonderful kids. I got to meet, Luke and all the siblings and the parents and traveled to Vietnam and I got to learn Vietnamese techniques by Master Seafood Lee. So it was just right time. You know that in life you have opportunities present yourself and you either do them or you don't. And I'm so happy that I did.
It's such a beautiful, quirky little site there on Crown Street. What was it like operationally, though, for you?
It was absolutely nuts because before doing the Olympic Hotel, I worked for Yanni Christus and Gabe Bilson. I worked for Matt Moran, and these were very sort of professional kitchen brigades. And so I took that to the Olympic Hotel, and we had that level of professionalism. But going into Crown Street, essentially it was a terrace house. So the kitchen was a renovated house kitchen with an extension, probably took in a little bit of laundry, but also working for a family, right? So I was this guy being introduced to an Asian family and how they work. And it was absolutely chaos. Like I had Pauline and Luke's parents in the kitchen. It was just chaos. I just remember that first night of working because I think we were all surprised at how busy we were. We announced that we were opening and there was a lot of interest because people could see this renovation taking place. And Luke, being the person that he is, he'd be talking to people all the time, telling them what's about to happen. And we were just absolutely slammed that first night in the first week. So much so that the kitchen was so disorganized because even though I was employed as the chef, I didn't have the confidence to step up and tell the in-laws where to go and what to do. So I let them experience the chaos. And then one day I just said, look, this has got to change. This has got to change. So I just took control and reorganized everything because the first week it was like we got an order for say wok fried 5-spice quail, and then Luke's mum would just disappear and I was like, where is she? Because the fridge was out the back and the wok was it was just insane. I was like, no control over what was happening. So it was that from that moment I knew something had to change if we were going to be a professional outfit.
In those early days, it was so busy, and was also part of that documentary with the hat system and things like that. Tell us about the energy, and why do you think it was so busy and so popular at that time?
Well, I think it was new. You're going back 20 years, so there wasn't a lot of Vietnamese cuisine in the city. So, Thai, Japanese, Vietnamese food tends to rank sort of, down in the level of Southeast Asian and Asian foods back then. Obviously with what we've done, and there's a few other restaurants doing it now, they've elevated the presence of it. So I guess it was just something new. We were a young team, we were very dynamic, and we were just out to, explore and to do our own thing. So it was just an exciting time.
Do you have any sort of favourite stories over the years of Red Lantern, of guests that have come in or moments with the restaurant?
Oh, there's been too many to mention. I mean, that was that expression. I've forgotten more than I remember, and it's so true. I had somebody in the restaurant the other night, and they said, "Remember when you did that exclusive dinner and you only cooked pig's heads?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I did." So much has changed. But I mean, back there, you could list celebrities and stars, but I mean, it all comes down to just the everyday punter, right? I mean, it's the bread and butter. It's the wonderful people that just believed in us and turned out day in, day out to spend their hard-earned cash on what we did. And I really think that we did provide such a great level of hospitality, and I think that's what restaurants are all about, right? It's not just food, it's the way the whole package comes together. And I think, Luke and Pauline were so dynamic on the floor. The food was great. I was learning. I was so excited to learn something new. Back then we were all working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. It was absolutely insane because not only were we performing to a packed restaurant, we had no credit, right? So I had to go to the fish markets, had to go to the butcher, I had to go to the Flemington to get them food. I had to get everything. There was no deliveries. So we were just working insane hours to the point where we just had to stop. Like we basically burnt out within 6 months and we had to sort of cancel a few services. And then eventually we built up that reputation. We started to get things delivered. So that really changed our lives.
How about for you personally? What sort of doors did it open for you over the years? And because you've done so many things, we've seen you on telly, you've released books. Like, what sort of impact has it had on you in that sense?
Yeah, well, what a fantastic vehicle, right? Like, there was so much interest that within the first sort of 12 months, I got approached to be on a television show called Ready, Steady, Cook, which was so much fun. And I forgot the impact that has on people. It's so easy just to do your day to day and you forget the impact that you actually have on people. And to this day, that stopped filming over 10 years ago. And to this day, people still come up and go to me, "Oh, I love that show. It was so great." So it was just interesting to be busy. So we got, I got that television gig and then we got the book deal, which was probably the really big one for us. So 2005, we released Secrets of the Red Lantern, where Pauline wrote a family memoir and Luke and I did the recipes for that book. And that was such a huge success. Pauline won Writer of the Year, new Writer of the Year for that book. And, what that book really set us apart or set us forward because Luke got approached to write his cookbook. So he pitched an idea about, traveling Vietnam and collecting recipes and writing about his travels. And that got the big tick. And then, of course, I pitched the sustainability book, The Urban Cook. And initially that was rejected, which I found interesting because I really believed in sustainable food and how our food's produced. But again, you got to remember, this is 20 years ago. Sometimes, it's not good to be at the forefront of a movement because, there's a lot of shouting and not many people listening. But I really believed in that project and I set about writing that book. And about 6 months later, I got a call from the publisher and they agreed to publish it. So that went on to be a successful book for me as well. So, it's just restaurants can be many things, but it was such a good vehicle for me, just opportunity, travel, books, television appearances, all these great things. But, there's all the fun things that you do adjunct to the day-to-day life in a kitchen.
It's interesting you say that about your book and that people weren't necessarily ready for that 20 years ago, but it did end up coming out and selling amazingly. But the restaurant itself did the same thing. It carved a new path for that sort of elevated Asian restaurant that is now prolific through Sydney. What's it like being one of the founders of that creating and carving that path to allow others to do that in the years that followed?
Yeah, that feels amazing. I think we're the first to do many things. I mean, Pauline was remembering the time when, people used to make multiple reservations in different restaurants and then pick one on the night, which would leave several restaurants without customers and losing tables. And, that's valuable income for that restaurant. So, she was reminiscing about how she introduced taking people's credit cards and using a bit of NLP and making people promise to turn up and all this sort of stuff. And then that moved on to actually having dining times, like just in small restaurants, that what I was saying at the beginning of this interview about trying to get people in early and then another lot of people in late, just to keep that revenue coming. So there's been so many things, and then I guess in 20 years we've seen a lot of adversity, and the GFC was like incredible for us because that really made us think, what can we do different? And I really wanted to elevate the cuisine with the produce that we're using. Because remember, this is a Asian family restaurant. And I never forget Pauline's and Luke's mother absolutely berating me about wasting her son's money because I spent $25 on an organic chicken when she could buy it from Cabramatta for $5 or get a chicken for $5, right? So, but I like, it really felt right for me. So, I used to then go out to the organic markets in Flemington and buy our vegetables. And then I made connections with producers, and I'd get, grass-fed Wagyu beef from Dunedoo. And I'd have all these amazing connections. But the GFC really did catapult or I guess fast track this decision, because I realized there was a need, because people that were dining at I felt sorry for top end restaurants at that time, because people were really pulling back their spend, right? So all corporations were pulling back their spend, and they really couldn't be seen to be extravagant. But what Red Lantern was offering was like product with provenance, which top-end restaurants were offering the same product, but I was delivering that for about 2/3 the price. So, we went from this cheap and cheerful restaurant where I think main courses were touch over $20 to a restaurant where main courses were $35, $38, which was a lot of money back then, but it still wasn't the money that these really high-end restaurants were charging. So, just really being, I guess, aware and astute of what the economic environment around us, and just seeing that niche in the market and just going for it. And we did that so many times.
There was a period of time when there were two sites with Red Lantern, the new one down closer to William Street, which is the one that you've just closed. Tell us about opening the second one and juggling the two venues. What was that like?
Yeah, well, that was so exciting. Again, when you're young and silly, you feel invincible, right? So we were so busy on Crown Street, and we thought, let's open another one. We're unshakable, and we did. So we invested in the Riley Street venue, and we invested a lot of money, and we were running, so this is about 2011, and the economy was still pretty stalled or pretty flat during that time. So we did run two restaurants quite successfully for about 18 months. We had up to sort of 50, 60 staff, if I remember. And both places were flying, but then it started to, then problems started to surface, and turnover started to ease. And we eventually made the decisions to closed the Crown Street restaurant because we just invested so heavily in Riley Street. But that then posed another problem, because we had to close it in the middle of a lease. So we were still on the hook for the rent there. So that then put a drain on Riley Street because, it was basically one restaurant, two rents. So it was like really financially, stressful. And of course we had to let people go. But we managed to make our way through that. But that just reminds me again, but, because we had that venue in Crown Street and we're still paying for it, we thought about what we could do. And we set up this restaurant called Porked.
That's
if you remember that, right?
So I think I reviewed it even.
Yeah, I think you did. And I mean, Pork only came about because it's like, how the hell are we going to pay the rent? We've got to do something. And again, about thinking about being first, or one of the first to market with a product, because we thought about these sort of American barbecue concepts and like the cafeteria style dining, and we thought, why don't we give it a crack down there and just serve pork exclusively? So I had a Bradley electric smoker. We couldn't invest in like proper wood-fired smokers and so on. But, we gave it a red hot go, and it was really interesting. Like it worked really well. So we had all these smoked meats and different cuts of pork, and then we had those traditional sort of American style accompaniments with beans and slaw and so on. And you go in with a tray, so you get your cafeteria tray, and that would have a paper lining, and you'd walk past, the hot box, and you'd just indicate what you wanted, and we'd just slice the amount of pork that you wanted, and then we'd put on the scale. So we'd charge by the gram, sort of 100 grams sort of thing. So that was a really amazing concept, and it was so much fun because we got craft beer in. So it was a real lads joint, right? So it was beer and pork. But I think I ostracized most of the women in Sydney because it became really a lads place, and we were playing to one audience, which was like boys with like beer and pork. So that eventually lost momentum as well, and we ended up closing it down. But we did see out that lease period. So pork saved us. We did see out that lease period, and we ended up closing it nice and neatly. And again, like there's barbecue became a massive thing in Sydney. So, that's awesome.
The Riley Street venue has done extraordinary things, and you've changed it and moved it around, and you even had a barber out the back during COVID, which we've talked about before, and all those sort of things. But it was a real opportunity for you to explore further into the cuisine. What's your favorite things in that sense with what you did with that site?
The site, the site, because we ended up thinking, what are we doing here? How can we distinguish ourselves? And we thought, well, let's make it more than a restaurant. Let's make it a house of creativity, right? So it was about hosting events. It was about doing collaborations with producers and chefs and so on, and just really highlighting the best of produce. Our cooking has always been really simple, just really great flavors, and I think that people we've never really fussed about the presentation on the plate. That's always been pretty straightforward. But I think the flavor and the produce has always shined through, and it's always been consistent, right? So the key to any restaurant is consistency, and I think we've managed to maintain that with food and service over the 20 years. The house of creativity. I mean, the barbershop thing is that I was a hairdresser before I became a chef, and I really thought, well, I've got this space during the day. What could I do with it? And I wasn't sure whether I would like being a barber or dealing with hair, but being the hair. But I so enjoy it, because then I got to realize that a barbershop is pretty much whatever it is, whatever you want it to be, right? It's, I was selling clothes through, I was selling records, I was selling food, I was selling drinks, cocktails. And again, the house of creativity, it just became part of the tapestry of the restaurant, because my favorite clients were the clients that would come in at 4:30, 5, and then meet their family for dinner. So I could turn a $50, $60 haircut into a $500 bill, which was absolutely awesome. So, but it was just so quirky and fun. And I think that you've just got to lean into the quirk, right? So that's just one of the things about Red Lantern. We always say that to work at Red Lantern, you have to be quirky as fuck. Just because, so many quirky people have worked there, right? And it's interestingly, and this is something that's really not plagued me, but I've had to consider. Obviously, there's been some great talent through my restaurant kitchen. I mean, Khan Nguyen comes to mind, and Sammy Jackson, who was one of my apprentices years ago, went to Boston and did great things, and Michi, who's Luke's head chef down at Botanic House. There's been some great talent, but also the kitchen has for a long time been made up of casual employees with just one or two permanent chefs that are really focused on making hospitality and cuisine their living. And that presents many problems. I could never understand where I could never get journeyman chefs, right? I'd advertise and I could never get people. And I just reflect and think, was it the cuisine? Did people think that the cuisine wasn't serious enough? I have no clue. So that always presented challenges, right? So as much as I think we've maintained the food standard, I also feel over the last 10 years, I basically my modus operandi is how do I get the maximum impact out of this plate of food with the least amount of involvement as possible?
It's a big thing to let go of, a restaurant of such influence and a massive part of your life. But What's the process now? Do you have a plan for what you want to do now, or are you just going to take some time off? What's your plan?
Yeah, my plan is to take some time off. I think I've deserved that, right? So I keep, I have someone who looks after all the bookwork, and she said to me, you're owed 700 hours of holidays. I said, excuse me. I don't know how many. Was that three? Oh, that must be at least 3 months or more. I don't know. So I'm going. Not that I'm going to get paid for those hours. But at least it's nice to know that I've got some time, right? So I'm going to take some time out initially, and I've been sort of doing some wheeling and dealing. I mean, all this year. I mean, to tell you, like it's been a really tough year, and I'm me, I'm pretty open and honest about all this stuff, and I know it's been a tough year for many people, but for a good 7 months of this year, I didn't pay myself. I couldn't afford to pay myself, so I was doing, and like it's extraordinary to consider the conversation we've just had about how successful the restaurant is and how it's perceived, right? So for 7 months, I haven't paid myself. I didn't pay myself, and I basically lent into side hustles. I became a food quality assurance officer at a kosher kitchen. I lent into the barbershop. I just did many things. I just had to hustle. I just had to hustle to pay my own bills, right? Because I was busy paying the restaurant and everyone else that worked at the restaurant's wages. So no, it's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary, and to think that, and I mean that's that thing where like the social goodwill from announcing that I'm closing, just the outpouring of love, has just been incredible. But that doesn't pay the bills. People forget that, right? And but I understand it too. Like I have no regrets and I have no remorse, and I certainly have no animosity because. Jesus, life's busy. Life's busy. And you think that our rusted on diehard fans, they were like in their 20s and 30s when they first discovered us. And now they're in their 50s and 60s. And life is busy. Life is busy. And the time has changed. I mean, we live in a city where people love the shiny new thing. And there's so many restaurants for people to choose from. So the fact that we maintain to, we're able to pay our bills and last this long is absolutely incredible. So for me, I'm going to have a break. And then probably lean into those side hustles a little bit more. Maybe, I've paid my own way for almost 25 years. I haven't been an employee for 25 years. So I feel like maybe that would be interesting, have somebody else worry about the business and just get a paycheck every week, but if someone wants to employ me. But I think I'll just probably keep hustling. I wouldn't mind leaning into the barbershop a little bit more, and then maybe opening like the small bar, Vietnamese snacks and so on. But then I'm really cognizant of the fact that I'm just dipping into someone else's pie as well. That's the thing. Every time a restaurant opens, they're dipping into someone else's pie. So that slice just gets thinner and thinner until the last man the guy that can't hold on any longer drops off. And then what is absolutely fascinating about this industry is that someone else will step up in their place thinking they can do a better job than the guy that previously that just dropped off the perch. So it's just extraordinary. So holiday, rest first. I'll go to Vietnam for a little while and then get back and sort of worry about that later.
Well, for a leap of faith, over 2 decades ago into a family restaurant and an idea, Red Lantern became important to so many people, including myself, that will remember it forever. It'll be entrenched in our memories as a wonderful venue and a gift to the culinary landscape of Australia. How does that make you feel, the impact that it's had on so many people?
Look, incredibly proud, and I think that will probably sink in the more distance that I get from the shop. And what has been truly a joy is, I'm in the kitchen, so I'm behind a glass. Or at least I'm behind glass, people can see me. A lot of chefs are behind walls, so they're totally unseen. And it's the front of house people. I always joke that, my tremendous restaurant manager, Adam Towers, who's fantastic on roller skates and a man of many talents, I always joke that he'll be the one that people will miss because he's the face of the business and has been for the last 6 years. But what has been truly amazing for me, because sometimes you're just in the kitchen doing what you do and you don't get to look up and you don't appreciate your own worth or value or the impact that you've had on people. It's just me walking through the floor and people, like, I have no clue who they are, stopping me and thanking me for decades of service, and, you know, where they're going to go now to celebrate their anniversaries, their birthdays, their special occasions. That has happened too many times for me to mention over the last 3 months. It's just absolutely been extraordinary. Like, I released a little video the other day of my last day, and I meant every word that I said in that. It was just phenomenal. Like, just the outpouring of love and goodwill was just incredible. So I have nothing but gratitude for the journey. And, you know, we talk about leap of faith to head in. It's a leap of faith to actually leave as well. It's about knowing when it's time. And I think anyone that owns a small business appreciates that. They know that feeling. They know when it's time. And my lease expires this Sunday. So as much as that is really what forced the decision, right? So my landlord has been exceptional throughout, like, the pandemic and going forward, and he offered me a very good deal going forward. But I just, like, reflecting on the last 5 years and the hustle. I just thought it was time for me to pull up stumps and try something else. So you know, the landscape has changed. Like, I mean, what I'm trying to do, what Red Lantern is trying to do with Pauline and myself and Adam and the team, it's virtually impossible now when all the money that goes into that restaurant comes through the door or comes out of my own pocket. I don't have investors. I don't have multiple venues. I can't lean on anything other than my own resources to fund and to catapult that restaurant forward. And I'm just tapped out. I just can't do it. And, you know, not to say, you know, people talk about these hospitality groups and stuff, and I don't think they have it easy either. I mean, they have multiple problems. So I'm not here saying bad hospitality group, poor small business, but everyone has their problems. But I think that the models, and I think it's well accepted, is to band together, sort of string a few restaurants together, get investments, become a group. I've noticed that just with, like, restaurants that have been freestanding for a long time have now partnered with bigger hospitality corporations. And it just makes sense. I mean, the bills, the resources, the cost of the resources that you need to input into a restaurant to make it work these days are just extraordinary. So if you can diversify those costs and have some sort of vertical integration. I remember going back to the Urban Cook, like, looking at the vertical integration of, like, the chicken industry and just thinking, fuck, this is bad shit, but boy, as a business, this makes sense. You control all the costs, like, it's insane. So I think that, you know, and I saw a story during the week that, you know, someone said that it's almost impossible to have a restaurant with under 60 seats and make it profitable unless you're running multiple seatings. And there's two partners in the business, maybe a chef and maybe a front of house person, that are working it hard. So if they're working it hard, they're probably paying themselves a wage, and maybe potentially at the end of the financial year, there's a little bit of coin left over to reinvest in the business or, you know, pay themselves a bonus. But, you know, people, I think, also don't appreciate just the unnecessary expense. Like, I announced I was closing 3 months ago, and my dishwasher died, right? My dishwasher died. That was $4,500 to keep it going for like, actually it died 2 months into this. So for the last month, I only needed to hang on for another month. One more month, please. And it decided to die, but it cost me that much money to get it fixed and to keep it going. And there are numerous other things. Like, it's just insane that just the cost that people don't appreciate that goes into a meal. And I think I made this point in the Urban Cook as well. Like, all people see is, like, that piece of tuna on a plate, right? They don't actually appreciate all the other expenses that go into producing that piece of tuna on the plate.
Well, Mark, it's always an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. And I personally want to thank you for what you and Pauline and Luke and the family have given all of us over so many decades with Red Lantern. Please keep in touch. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I just want to say to you, especially Anthony, like, you've been a great supporter of ours over the years, and it's just been fantastic, the relationship we've built. I still remember that fishing trip in New Zealand, and that was insane. And I ran into some people that were on that trip the other day, and we just had so much fun, reminiscing. So it was awesome. So yeah, lots of love to you. I mean, again, I have nothing but gratitude for the dining public of Sydney and Australia, and many of our guests would fly in from overseas as well. So it's just been a wonderful journey, and I'm so pleased to have made our mark in the Sydney dining scene.
You legend. Talk soon.
Thank you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe and be well.